Hello, everybody. Welcome to this YouTube Live about the Scorpio New Moon, which will be happening on November 20th, 2025. I am Jocelyn Starfeather, and I am delighted to be here with you today. And I have a very strong Scorpio aspect in my birth chart. And so this is deeply meaningful to me, this new moon. It's been interesting as I've been preparing this video and the material and the content for all of you. It's been a really profound journey for me, and I want to share that with all of you. And I know that so many of you here in the Sacred Planet community and in the Quantum School community probably have a lot of Scorpio in your charts as well. I welcome you to write in the chat. What kind of Scorpio are you? Do you have your sun in Scorpio? Do you have your moon in Scorpio, as I do? Do you have your ascendant in Scorpio? Or do you not know what planets you have in Scorpio? And we can talk about that too. Whatever aspect of you is your Scorpio nature is going to have a very, very powerful experience with this Scorpio new moon coming up on November 20th. And I want to tell you all about that in this video. So let me bring up the chart here for our new moon in Scorpio. And I'll show you all of the important aspects to know astrologically. So this will be occurring on November 20th, 2025 at 1:46 a.m. New York time. So if you are on Mountain Time or Pacific Time in the Americas, this will actually be late at night on the 19th for you. And it will be sometime on the 20th for most of the world. Check to see what time it will be exact in your own time zone. And at this new moon, we will have the sun and moon together at 28 degrees, 11 minutes of Scorpio. Now, the sun and moon will be exactly conjunct Mercury at that time. Mercury is at 28 degrees of Scorpio and retrograde, moving backwards. He's going to be eventually going all the way back to 20 degrees of Scorpio by November 29th. But right now, he just happens to be exactly lined up with the sun and moon at the moment of the Scorpio new moon. So that is very, very meaningful as a part of this whole Mercury retrograde journey that we're on. And the new moon is also conjunct Black Moon Lilith here at 26 degrees of Scorpio. So this is significant too. We'll talk about this as well. And all of them, the whole lineup here in Scorpio, carrying all this powerful, deep, meaningful, magical, shamanic energy of Scorpio is opposite Uranus. And this is very significant for us. Uranus is the planet that stands for our freedom and our liberation, and he will bring us shocking and surprising events to help us attain our freedom. So we're going to be feeling that strongly. And this whole lineup here in Scorpio is also completing and amplifying the grand water trine that's been going on for quite some time, for several weeks now, as we have Jupiter at 25 degrees of Cancer, trine to Saturn at 25 degrees of Pisces, and Neptune not too far off here as well. Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces is also now involved in this grand water trine, as Neptune has been retrograding back into Pisces. And then both of these parts of the chart, the later degrees of Cancer, the later degrees of Pisces, are all in trine with the whole lineup here: Mercury, Sun, Moon, Black Moon, Lilith, all at 26 to 28 degrees of Scorpio. So we've got a very, very powerful grand water trine happening that's going to bring up a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of intensity, and has the potential to help us really break free from what has been holding us back, break free from our pain, our traumas, our woundings, allow us to be like the phoenix rising from the ashes. which is a really powerful part of the Scorpio energies that I'm going to be talking about today. So we will dive into the depths with all of this in just a moment. I just want to give you a few announcements as we're getting started here today. So I want to invite you to check out my Mercury retrograde video if you haven't already. This is the other most recent live video that I recorded on my channel, Mercury retrograde and Sagittarius and Scorpio. And this Mercury retrograde goes from November 9th to the 29th. So you will really want to be tuned into this, know what's going on, how is it working with you, so that you can receive the gifts of this Mercury retrograde, because it's a very, very important one. And I explain why in the video. Definitely check that out. I will link that in the description field below so you can easily find it once we're done recording this. And come and check out my website, wearesacredplanet.com. Lots of goodies, free and donation-based courses and workshops that you can find over here under online courses. Check out Egypt 2026, and I will be adding more retreats and pilgrimages for 2026 very soon. So I'll announce those on a later video, but can't wait to share all of that with you. And if you would love to know how to pull your own birth chart, how to find out where are these new moon and Scorpio energies falling in your own birth chart, definitely come to this link, which I'll also put in the description field below, and get my free gift, which is the Alchemical Astrology Chart Reading Guide. It's going to help you decode the language of your birth chart. And it's going to tell you what the planets mean, how to find them in your chart, the deeper meaning of the zodiac signs, the deeper meaning of the houses, and so much more. So definitely come and get this guide if you haven't gotten it already. Okay, so coming back to this Scorpio new moon chart. Oh my, I just have so much to say about this. So the title of this video is Truth, Lies, and What You Lost Along the Way. And so these are some of the themes that I see in the chart, and I feel intuitively that we will be working with so strongly during this Scorpio new moon. We will definitely be faced with truths and with lies during this Scorpio new moon time, and it will be really important for us to use our emotional and spiritual mastery to discern wisely and clearly who we actually are and what we stand for. Who else is involved, and can we believe them? Is this someone we can trust? Is this someone that we believe holds the truth and holds the light? This is a very important aspect of Scorpio discernment, right? The light and the dark, the truth and the lies. And also we can, during this time, leap ahead on our path of emotional and spiritual mastery with these powerful Scorpio energies, choosing a new path to follow, the path that is in the light, right? And really choosing powerfully how we want to move forward once the truths and the lies have been revealed, once the information has kind of shaken out and moved through our consciousness, and we've been able to do the Scorpio excavation to discern really clearly what it means for us, we get to choose a new path forward. Now, the Mercury retrograde being exactly conjunct to the new moon in Scorpio is significant. All right, so this new moon is very much going to be about our communications. Maybe having difficult conversations, or maybe shifting, recalibrating, reworking the way that we are choosing to communicate. With Scorpio being about our true and deep power. This is such an important part of the Scorpio archetype. Scorpio is how we find our power deep within. And sometimes we have to go way down into the shadows to find that power. But then when we bring that power out, it can allow us to show up and be present and to communicate, Mercury, in a completely different way than we were able to before. With the Mercury retrograde being conjunct the new moon, this can also be about our mind, our thoughts. Maybe you're having difficult thoughts that are taking you into the darkness, right? And bringing up difficult feelings, difficult emotions, maybe showing you trauma and pain and karma from your past. What's really important to know about this is that Scorpio is always about resurrection and rebirth, transformation and transmutation. So these conversations that may be very difficult that we have to have, or the reflections of the darkness in our mind, these, when we dare to work with them, when we dare to have that conversation, when we dare to look into our thoughts and our belief systems and ask, what is the deeper meaning of this? What is it showing me? What do I need to know? Then we have the potential to really burst back out into the light. And this is the high frequency side of Scorpio. It's like we take this journey down into the darkness. We allow ourselves to be taken apart, dismembered. We allow pieces of ourselves to die away. And then we rise like the phoenix from its own ashes, from our own ashes, back into the light. This new moon has the power and the potential to shamanically clear karma and past life events so that you can finally heal them, so that you can move on. And this is really important for us to know at this time because, as I shared in great detail in the Mercury retrograde video, 2025 is a completion year. Numerologically, if you add up those digits, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5, you get 9. 9 in the numerological system is a completion year. It is a year to finish things, to close out, to let go, release all that is old, because we know then after the 9 year, we're always going to go into a 1 year, which is a new beginning. We want to have a blank slate. We want to have things really clear and pure, clear the decks, right? To prepare us to go into the 1 year. And we're in the final 2 months of this completion year. So it is time to clear. We have actually now 6 planets retrograde, including Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, Uranus, and Chiron. All 6 of those are retrograde right now. And this is helping us clear, release, complete, so we can move forward in a whole new way for the new beginning year, the 1 year that is coming next. So I said a lot more about that in the Mercury retrograde video. Listen to that if you haven't already. It will tell you even more about completions and new beginnings and where we are in the timelines with all of that. Now, with the new moon opposite to Uranus, there will be shocks. There will be surprises. And in fact, this has already been happening. I think we are even being guided in like a very intense kind of spiritual training to get used to the shocks because Uranus has been working with us so strongly for the last few years and especially in the last month, right? Ever since the middle of October. And I would love to hear you write in the chat. How many of you listening have had truly shocking events occur in your life just over the last month or so? Write yes in the chat if you have. Now, when you find yourself in these shocking situations, maybe that difficult conversation turns out to be even more shocking than you thought, or maybe some new information comes in that just kind of pulls the rug out from under you. Be courageous, right? We want to really be in our spiritual mastery with these Scorpio times. We don't want to be making decisions from fear or from lies. We want to lead with truth. We want to call upon the light within ourselves, call upon the wisdom that you hold in your heart, and you will know what to say. You will know what to do, and you will find your way to become that phoenix, rising from the ashes as you shed and let go of the parts that need to die, the parts of your life, the parts of yourself, maybe the false identities that you thought all this time were true, and you realize now that identity was never me. That label was never accurate. I am so much more than that. And I let it go now, right? And then you rise. You rise into the new version of who you're becoming. Now, I mentioned truth and lies, right? So it's really important to know that this is a time for us to stand in our truth, our conviction, and our integrity, no matter what. Know that you standing in your truth will ultimately force the truths of others to shine out of the darkness. And it's not always easy to hear the truth. This is happening in our world. There are truths coming out that we don't really want to know, but we need to know. And it's happening within ourselves too, in our lives, in our relationships, maybe in our careers, right? It's not always easy to hear the truth, but we must keep in mind the truth will always set you free. Following the lies will just keep you entangled in a web of deception. And that's not how we want to live. So follow the truth, even if it hurts, because the truth will set you free. The truth will allow you to build a solid foundation based on what is real, what is true, what can be held up in the light. Right? So do not choose lies during this Scorpio new moon. It's really important. The choices that we make at this powerful and intense new moon time are important and will become the foundation of our future. So don't choose the lies. Be very careful. Be in your highest integrity. The truth is the only way forward. Now, this conversation about truth and lies and integrity and our values, it brings us to some really important points in your birth chart that I want to talk about today, which are the ascendant and the IC. And these are very interesting points that I think are really quite misunderstood in modern astrology in general. And these 2 points, the ascendant and the IC, which the IC stands for Imum Coeli, it means the bottom of the sky. All right, and I'll show you this in the chart. So always in the astrology chart, you're going to see, and if you look at your chart, you'll see this. I'm using the new moon chart as the example of this, okay? But you will see the ascendant. It's the AC in the chart. This is the exact line of the horizon where the sun is rising at that moment. So somewhere in the world, the sun is always rising, right? So this is the horizon. This is the eastern horizon at the moment that this chart was captured. In this case, for the exact moment of the Scorpio new moon, 1:46 a.m. in New York time, it's 27 degrees of Virgo. That is the degree point that is exactly on the eastern horizon at that moment in time. And then if we look for the IC, it will always be near the bottom. Like I said, Imum Coeli, the bottom of the sky. That is what the IC is in our chart. So you can find that here. Now, let me explain a little bit more about what these points mean specifically in your birth chart. These are not points that we look at so much in a new moon chart. They are much more important for each of us as individual beings, okay, in our birth charts. So first of all, let's look at the IC. This is a point that is very rarely talked about in astrology, and it's actually a really important point in all of our charts. It is the foundation that is kind of supporting and holding up the whole rest of the chart. Everything that we are, all of those other planets, the midheaven, the north node, our purpose and mission, right? Our sun, all of these other points are supported and held up by the foundation of the IC. So the IC is our deepest integrity and values that we hold within ourselves. This is aspects of ourselves that we would rarely ever even think about or talk about. They're so subconscious. They're not something that we're going to be like saying, oh yeah, this is such a big part of my personality, and like sharing with friends or sharing with our partner. It's not even something that we're really consciously aware of most of the time. That's why it's at the bottom of the chart, the bottom of the sky. It's very hidden, but it is an absolute foundation of who we are because it is where we hold our values, our integrity. It is what we stand for. It is what we will never compromise on. And so this is very important as we're having this Scorpio new moon conversation about truth and lies. So your IC is the part of you that is going to require you to be in your truth. It's the part of you that is your values that, like I said, you will never compromise on. So you can see how the IC being this part that is like our integrity, our values, what we stand for, what we will not compromise on, that is such an important foundation to hold up the rest of the chart. So You can get the Alchemical Astrology Chart Reading Guide. Look and see where the IC is in your chart. Look and see which sign it's in. Look and see which house it's in. All of this is very important. It will usually be in the fourth house, but sometimes it can be in the fifth house in the whole sign house system. So that's the IC. And it's actually really important to know what your IC is. What are those values? And you can, even without having your chart in front of you, you can do this from a meditative perspective. Go within and ask yourself or journal on, what are my deepest values? What is it that I stand for and will not ever compromise on? What is it that I require myself to be in highest integrity around? And that will tell you all about your IC. Now, the IC is there at the base of the chart, and the ascendant is on the eastern horizon. So here's the ascendant in this chart, 27 Virgo in this case. For someone born at the exact time of this new moon, they would have their ascendant at 27 degrees and 38 minutes of Virgo. So the ascendant is a very misunderstood part of the chart. We are told in modern astrology, usually and always in this kind of pop culture astrology, that our personality is defined by our sun sign. And everybody knows their sun sign. And if you read in like Cosmo magazine or whatever, you know, the astrology, the horoscope, it will tell you to look at your sun sign. But in ancient times, they knew, and this is really the deeper truth of the matter, that the ascendant is a far more accurate and important representation of your personality and who you really are than the sun sign. So the sun is more about how we shine our light, how we are out in the world, what people see in us. And the sun has a lot to do with our mission and purpose. The sun is like the part of us that knows the mission and is here to carry it out, and that has the heart and the courage and the bravery and the light within to carry out that purpose. That's different than our personality. Our personality, which is even a term that we could question the meaning of, right? But let me just speak then in terms of the ascendant, because we could disagree on what personality even means. The ascendant is your true and essential nature. It is who you really are. It is both the private parts of you that are like you hold deep within, and the parts that you share outwardly with the world. It includes all of that. But the ascendant, I think the most clear way to understand this is who we truly are and who we came in as when we were initially born in this lifetime. Before all the layers of conditioning and rules and regulations and lies and illusions were placed upon us, right? The ascendant tells us who we were in our pure and pristine state of original beauty when we first came in. Maybe even before birth, right? Like looking at who we were in the womb, even before that light of the external world shone upon us at birth, and definitely before the conditioning, the illusions, the rules and restrictions were placed upon us. Now, the interesting thing about the ascendant is because it is that pure original essence of who we are, it is often very much damaged or beaten up during childhood and our teenage years, because we come in with this pure nature. And we see this in children, you know, the innocence of children, right? The openness, like they're just fully expressing who they really are. But then they're told, don't be too loud. Don't dance on the couch. You need to sit quietly right now. You need to do well in school, right? This is all the layers of the conditioning coming in. And so we learn to hide our ascendant. We learn to hide that true and essential part of who we really are. And then at a certain time in our lives, hopefully, right, when we have our awakening times, or when we are doing deep inner and spiritual work, we realize we want to find that part of ourselves again. We want to find our ascendant. We want to rediscover, reconnect with who we truly are, our true core essence. And we begin to do the deep, deep spiritual work to discover it. So that's the ascendant. And it's a very, very important part of our chart for us to know about so that we can work with that and so that we can be more informed. So if you look at the ascendant in your birth chart, look at the zodiac sign, look at the house. Well, it will always be in the first house, the ascendant. But look at what other planets and points are nearby to it because they were part of the conditioning and part of the influences that you had as a child that maybe made you hide the ascendant, but they're also part of your strengths that are meant to ultimately be brought forward as gifts of your ascendant. I won't go too much deeper into that, but that is really important for us to know at this time as we're working with the Scorpio new moon, right? Both the I see, what are my deepest values and integrity? What do I stand for? What will I not compromise on? That is going to help us stand really strong in our own truth. And then the ascendant, what is the true essence of my being? Because that's what we want to cultivate. That's what we want to live from. And the Scorpio ability to transmute and transform ourselves and shed the lies and shed the conditioning, to let it go, is a really important part of the process to connect in with at this Scorpio new moon so you can become and live as and embody more and more of who you truly are. Okay, so those two important points will be really active for you. Work with them, connect with them in your chart, see what they mean for you. And as I said, even if you don't have your birth chart or you don't understand how to read a birth chart yet, you can get to those through meditation and journaling. So work with it that way if that calls to you more. I want to also speak to you about the profound meaning of Scorpio, the zodiac sign Scorpio, the constellation Scorpius. Okay, because we are in a very Scorpio portal of time right now. And coming back to the chart, I just want to emphasize that we've been in a really, really Scorpio, scorpionic portal ever since the middle of October, even before the sun moved into Scorpio. So if I go to this other chart briefly, this is the chart for October 18th. And at this time, I believe the Scorpio portal opened. And you all may have felt that. There were some really big things going on around this time. And this was even before the new moon in Libra, because we had the sun and moon to come together on October 21st at 29 degrees of Libra. So the sun was still in Libra at this point, but yet we were starting to have a Scorpio experience because Mercury and Mars were lining up here for their conjunction in Scorpio. And also, within a few days of this, Mercury reached 20 degrees of Scorpio, which is the beginning of the Mercury retrograde shadow period, because Mercury is retrograde from 6 degrees of Sagittarius all the way back to 20 degrees of Scorpio. So anytime that Mercury now is between those degrees, even if we're out of the retrograde, we're still in the shadow period. So in any case, this began an initiation, an initiatory period. Scorpio is all about initiations. The deep, 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 powerful initiations of our lives. That is Scorpio. So this is important for us to know that this Scorpio portal has been open already for a long time, since even before the sun moved into Scorpio. And now here we are, new moon in Scorpio, 28 degrees, conjunct Mercury, conjunct black moon Lilith. So what is it about the Scorpio archetype that we need to know? Well, Scorpio season always, which generally goes from October 20th to November 20th each year. That can vary slightly this year. For example, the sun moved into Scorpio on October 22nd or 23rd, depending on your time zone. But this month, while the sun is in Scorpio every year, is a time when we honor the darkness. And we recognize that the darkness, when we dare to go there, when we dare to work with it, ultimately holds the brightest light. So it's no mistake that the celebrations of Samhain or Halloween, El Día de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, All Souls Day, All Saints Day, these are all held during the time that the sun is in Scorpio. So we recognize with these celebrations, even today, as we've gotten so far from our pagan past, right? But we still recognize today through these different traditions across many continents, across many different religions, We recognize this as a time when the veils are so thin. And because those veils are thin, we can connect with the ancestors, our guides, the unseen realms, and we can choose our power that is hidden in the darkness. And because of this, we can choose a completely new timeline every year during Scorpio season. And I will say, especially this year, because there's been such intense Scorpio energy, but that brings even more intense levels of our true and deep power. So the archetype of Scorpio, I like to think of it as the most intense spiritual training program that you could possibly imagine. And I have deep personal experience, which I'll tell you a little bit about today in this video, with that intense Scorpio spiritual training program. Scorpio will bring us into mastery as long as we dare to go and explore the darkness. So there's a trust, there's a deep level of trust here. We can trust Scorpio to transform us. We can trust Scorpio to show us our power and our mastery. But there's also a surrendering that is needed, a surrendering to the darkness, a surrendering to look within. And Scorpio will help us to find our true and deep power, which is hidden in the darkness, but which holds our brightest light. And that is really the key to Scorpio, the brightest light that is hidden in the darkness. Now, Scorpio is intense. This is a very intense emotional experience, a very intense life event experience in Scorpio. Scorpio does not allow us to turn away from what is hard to see. It really requires us to feel and live the full emotional spectrum of the human experience. And it's interesting because all of the water signs in astrology, Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio, all three of them, hold that full emotional spectrum of the human experience, but Cancer and Pisces do not hold it at the same level of intensity that Scorpio does. It's really fascinating. We really learn about the deepest aspects of our inner being through Scorpio. And so in that full spectrum experience, this is where we find and can bring out the truth and the light that are burning brightly within ourselves. And we can find that power, and there's something interesting about the power where over many lifetimes, over many generations, we have hidden that power. And we have hidden it because we needed to keep it safe, and it was not safe to show it. But we're in a different time now. We're in a time where we can bring that power, that truth, and that light out. And in fact, it is needed, deeply called for to serve and assist in our world at this time. Now, I'm going to tell you just a little bit, just like the short, high-level version, as much as you can be high-level with Scorpio, right? A little bit about my own Scorpio story. These are parts of my story which I don't often share. They stay hidden. And of course, it's Scorpio. But these are really part of the core of who I am and who have forged me in the way that I show up in the world. Now, I tell you this not because I want to go deeply into my own story, but I tell you this to give an example of what the Scorpio initiations can look like in our lives. And so that maybe each of you will see a little bit of yourself, your Scorpio self in my story. This is so that together we can honor these profound initiations we've been through. And also, I just want to say, as I tell you this story of my life and my Scorpio experiences, I'm not saying that these are the kinds of things that are going to happen at the Scorpio new moon, okay? But I'm saying that the Scorpio new moon is a time to honor the deep, and painful experiences we've had in our lives, because they are the experiences that help us find our light and bring it out. So let me go into my story and I'll tell you what I mean by all that. Now, I have my moon and Uranus conjunct in Scorpio. Shocking. My moon and Uranus conjunct in Scorpio, and they're in the 12th house by the whole sign system. Believe me when I say that I know about Scorpio intensity. Ever since the moment I was born, I have known about Scorpio intensity because I was born with my skin blue because the cord was wrapped around my neck. Since my childhood and my teenage years, I was plagued by intense fears. I was experiencing the depths of depression and still don't even fully understand why. Maybe it was because of being born with the cord around my neck, which is one of these very kind of shamanic initiatory experiences, right? Of when the child first comes in that way. And who knows what past life memories and woundings and traumas I was kind of processing in those early years that was too much for my young mind to handle, right? But what it resulted in was this intense fear and depression that I experienced for most of my childhood and my teenage years for sure. And then at age 7, I was in a terrible car accident with my dad, and I was fine, but my dad's life essentially ended at that point. He was still alive, but he was never himself again. And he passed away very early because of all that. And that was like at age 7, right? Everything changed forever right there in that moment. When I was 12, a psychologist told my mom that I would never be able to live a normal life in the world. I was so crippled by my fear and depression at that point. And there's more, but I'm not even going to go into more. That's enough. Okay, that's enough for you to know. And here's the thing about Scorpio. These are the shamanic initiations. And I really invite you to look into your own life. And we don't have to go back and revisit these traumas, but we can honor them. We can acknowledge them. And here we are, right? This is the really important message about this. Despite all that, here I am. I chose to rise. I chose, even at that very young age, when I didn't have a spiritual, background or any way to make sense of any of that, still I chose to shine my light despite all of the darkness that I saw around me. I chose to find my power. Scorpio is very much about that, reclaiming our true and deep power that no one can ever take away. Right? So this is an incredible ability that we have in the Scorpio realms to know that no one can take away our power. We can always choose the light again and again and again. And I invite you to say too, like I said, here I am shining my light in the world. And I invite you to say that too and claim that, even despite these Scorpio initiations that you may have been through in your life, because I know that so many of us have had really challenging ones. Here you are. You're shining your light. And so in that story, you can see that even as a very young person, I found my will to live. I focused upon that. I expanded the light within me. Not because I was thinking and trying to do so, but because this is a deep inner wisdom that we hold, a deep Scorpio knowledge about how to rise above the challenges. And it's incredible how deep that wisdom is. It's incredible how it can guide us through the darkest times. And we all hold that knowing within ourselves. And being able to hold those very dark and intense spaces within myself has allowed me then to do the work I'm doing now. So this is the thing with Scorpio, right? Out of the darkness, we find the brightest light. So those same Scorpio aspects of myself have allowed me to explore, decode, and share the deep truths of alchemy and astrology, for example, or the deep truths of the ancient sacred sites, and to go exploring and find the deeper meaning of those sacred sites and the mysteries hidden within. And even this potent path of entrepreneurship that is so transformational, that brings us in to work with our deepest wounds so that we can shine the light, right? All of this is a representation of the deep and life-changing journeys that I'm able to guide people in today because I had these Scorpio trainings ever since the beginning of my life. So I invite you to look at this in your life, right? What are those initiations, those shamanic experiences that changed you, right? That altered the course of your life. and that you rose from, that you were allowed yourself to be transformed by, to bring your light out into the world. This is what Scorpio is about. By going through those initiations, which are still ongoing in my life in certain ways, I'm still having these shamanic initiations. And I guess we get more accustomed to dealing with that, right? To working with that. But through all of it, I have gained the capacity to hold incredibly deep space for others. And that becomes a way that I shine my light. So this is what we do, my fellow Scorpio beings out there in the world. And I want to really honor each and every one of you for being and living and embodying these Scorpio realities of through the darkness, we find the light, right? So Scorpio family, we know the darkness, but the darkness has made us strong. And I want to say we are each stronger than we even know, right? With our conscious human minds, we are so much stronger than we even know. We take our mastery and our courage, we choose the light, and we share that light. So we're in this together. I am here with you. And here we are on this journey, this incredibly powerful journey. And there's deep magic in it. This is another piece that's so important to recognize. Whatever we've been through, there is magic in every one of those experiences. There is meaning, symbolism, important lights shining through and guiding us on the path, right? And so with this mastery of the darker realms, we can carry that mastery with honor because we know we hold the keys to bringing back the light. Now, if you have experienced these kinds of initiations or times of darkness in your light, in your life, and maybe you've not been honoring your mastery of it, this Scorpio new moon is an amazing time to begin celebrating your own strength, your courage, and your choice to rise, because you are here. You are listening to this video. You are shining your light even after everything you've been through. And I deeply honor every single one of you out there, your sacred journey through the darkness and back into the light. It's important to note too that this is for us on an individual, personal, inner level, but it's also about what's going on in the world around us. So at this time, we are obviously finding a lot of darkness around us in the world. And who knows the way through the darkness and out to the other side where we find the light? Scorpio. Scorpio knows. So let us connect with the powerful themes of Scorpio, which holds the courage and the power to guide us out of the darkness and into the light at this time. And I really, again, invite you to connect with the parts of yourself that are Scorpio. So look in your birth chart if you have it available. Get the alchemical astrology guide which I'll put the link in the chat in the description field below. Find what planets and points do you have in Scorpio. It's really important to know at this new moon. How is that working with you and within your own beingness? And tell me in the chat, what planets do you have in Scorpio? I would love to know. I want to just go through a few of the really important Scorpio themes to be aware of during this Scorpio new moon. I've given you maybe some illustrations of them through that little story about my life and these topics, but I want to be really clear about what are the Scorpio themes. So here are some of them. Scorpio is so vast, it's kind of hard to make a full comprehensive list, but here are some of the most important Scorpio themes we can be aware of during this new moon. One of them is the deep meaning in everything. So Scorpio is like the part of Indra's net where the profound meaning and symbolism is woven throughout every aspect of creation. Everything has meaning. Every experience you've ever had is meaningful. It matters. It's important. And it's even a message to you. It's communicating with you, right? This is part of how the unseen realms are communicating with us through the meaning of our life's events. Like the meaning is encoded in everything that happens. And when we look for that meaning, it changes the way we can approach everything. It allows us to bring deeper consciousness, deeper integrity, deeper power to everything that we do when we see that meaning, when we see how important each event is. So you can trust. This is another place where you can trust Scorpio. You can trust that there is always a deeper meaning. Scorpio is also magic, right? This is so important to know. Scorpio recognizes that magic is our ability to shape and change reality using our true original technologies. Our true original technologies are not the iPhone, right? Not the computer or the Zoom call, right? Those are kind of modern and somewhat distorted realities, which we can use for good. But our true original technologies are the technologies that we hold in our body, in our blood, in our DNA, the technology that allows us to connect with that tree or that star, or to connect with the earth. And this is part of our organic sovereignty. This is something I've spoken a lot about. We, in this crazy age of like AI and massive shifts and changes in the distorted technology, we can use those kinds of technologies for good, like I said, but the real answer, the real truth of who we are is to return to and claim our organic sovereignty, because the highest technology we're ever going to find is right here in our own body, and the physical reality of the earth and the trees, and our spiritual and multidimensional connection with all that is. All of that is already in us. We don't need the iPhone to find it, right? We don't need AI to find that. So our true original technologies include our intuition, our communications with the unseen realms, the wisdom that we hold in our bones and our blood and our DNA, our rituals and ceremonies, right? Our connection with the ancestors and our guides. We know innately how to create magic. It's a part of us. It always has been since the very origin point of all life. Scorpio is that magic which has been hiding for so long. Remember, we had to hide our power. We had to hide our magic to keep it safe, but it is emerging back into our consciousness now. It is rising back up within our world. So this is another part of Scorpio that you can trust. You can trust that everything holds magic, right? And the most difficult experiences that we go through actually hold the greatest amounts of magic. It is so important to remember that. Now, Scorpio is also alchemy, transformation, transmutation, how we shift from one state of being into another, how we transform from that past version of ourselves into who we are becoming. Scorpio is that part of ourselves that is the phoenix rising from the ashes. And the knowing that we can allow parts of our life, parts of ourselves, parts of our identities to die away. And still, we will always be held in wholeness because we are truly infinite and eternal, and we can never be broken. This is speaking to the soul which has been with us and has incarnated through so many different lifetimes across all time and space. The soul is relentless, right? We will never give up. We know that we will always find our way back to the light, which is our true and inherent nature. We are light. We are light seekers, and we will always find our way back to that light, right? And that is the kind of the key principle that is at the heart of all transformation. Now, Scorpio does include those initiations through trauma that I talked about. Scorpio includes what you lost along the way, but which you are also finding again, right? And finding the light in the darkness that will make you whole again, or that will remind you of your inherent wholeness that you've always, always had. Scorpio is our true and deep power that no one can ever take away. And Scorpio is strength and mastery in going through these initiations, seeing them as a spiritual training program, all right, no matter how intense and difficult they are. know that the initiations, whatever initiations you may be going through in your life right now, they are developing you, evolving you into even greater truth and light and power that you're meant to hold, that you're meant to be and embody, and that you're meant to bring forth in the world. So again, we can trust these processes that we're going through. Even if you're in a very dark time, you can trust that there is magic, there is meaning to it. There is power that you are uncovering through that. You can trust, Scorpio. Another interesting part of Scorpio is that Scorpio is the psychologist, the one who excavates, the one who wants to explore in these deeper realms and find that meaning and find that magic and help to hold that in the light, and who can hold space for others to find that light within themselves. So if you are a therapist, a coach, a counselor, a psychologist, any of these types of things, a shamanic healer, right? You're helping people to do these excavations. You are helping people to find their power and light within. And that's amazing. And I thank you so much for doing that. As I said earlier, Scorpio is the full emotional spectrum of the human experience. So we want to really honor our emotions during this time. We want to listen to and pay attention to our emotions. It's important to know, and all the water signs know this, okay? Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, they know that our emotions are the deep wisdom of the body, which cannot yet be understood by the conscious mind. Our emotions are telling us things that the mind doesn't yet know or comprehend. And they're really important to listen to, because there is a lot of wisdom held in the body. There's a lot of wisdom held in our feelings and our emotions that we can find, we can tap into, we can learn from, that we would never be able to find in the thinking mind. Right? So pay attention to your emotions during the Scorpio new moon. It's really important. They will have significant messages for you. Scorpio is also our shamanic nature. So our shamanic ability to be in, as I explained in the Mercury retrograde video, this incredible flow state, to enter into a flow state, a creative state, a state where we are in connection and communication with all that is. And to be living shamanically in that way more and more, as much as we can, in that flow state with all of creation. Right? This is part of our true and deep shamanic nature. The shaman is also the one who is willing to venture deeply out into the unseen realms and then bring the wisdom back to help others or to help the community. This is very much Scorpio as well. So Scorpio is being that light in the darkness that is so needed in our world today. And an important thing to think about just on a personal, individual level at this Scorpio new moon is Scorpio is about going into the cave, retreating from society, having our alone time, our solo time, our solitude time. So really allow yourself some of that at this new moon, the time in the cave, the time to be in solitude, and to do the deep inner dive, so that you can find the light, right? So that you can find more of your power. It's so important to do that every once in a while. And this Scorpio season, this Scorpio new moon, is an incredible time to do so. Now, I want to leave you here at the end of this video with a key way that you can work with this new moon in Scorpio. You can work with it in conjunction with the retrograde that's happening. And actually, it's very important that you do, right? It's very important that we acknowledge that this Mercury retrograde is happening at the same time as the new moon in Scorpio, and that is important. And I want to come back to one piece that I didn't speak about too much yet, which is Black Moon Lilith being right here. Okay. Now, Black Moon Lilith is a really important piece of the puzzle of this new moon, because she is the feminine who is rebellious, revolutionary. She will not stand for the status quo. She will not settle. She will not compromise. And she is focused on the truth, Not any external truth that she's trying to find out in the world, but the truth that she knows within herself. So I invite you all to connect with Lilith at this Scorpio new moon. She's meant to be our guide at this time. That's why she's right there, right there with the new moon and Mercury. Allow her to send you the transmissions, the revelations about what you will not compromise on. Okay, about what you will not settle for. And that will lead you to really being able to trust and stand fully in your own place of highest truth and integrity, right? So taking that into consideration then as well, the key way that you can work with this new moon in Scorpio is to discern what the messages from the universe and the events in your life have been telling you since about October 18th or so, when Mercury had that conjunction with Mars that I showed you in the other chart. And also that was about the same time that Mercury began his retrograde shadow period. This whole time since October 17th, 18th, 19th has been a very Scorpio portal. So it's important now at the new moon to look at which of the themes that I've spoken about today are coming up in your life and have been coming up since around that time of October 18th or so. Decide what you want to do about those themes in your life. Based on what's being shown to you then, what shifts, recalibrations, or new story is needed? What do you know that you need to claim as true for yourself and your future? And you can then set your new moon intentions in alignment with that. Now, remember that always, every new moon is a time of new beginnings. It is a time for setting intentions. It is a time for planting seeds. This new moon is in the middle of a retrograde, though, so it feels a little different. It may not feel as much like a new beginning as most new moons do. It's also a new moon occurring at the very, very close to the end of a big completion year, right? So we do have a lot of endings and letting go going on at the same time as this new moon. But the new moon is still a point on the timeline where you get to choose something new and different. You get to set your intentions. You get to plant your seeds. And even if it feels like everything else is going backwards, it's still okay to plant the seeds at this new moon. And so then here's how to claim your power back. Whatever you're being shown in your life since that time around October 18th, know that this is your curriculum from the universe for this Mercury retrograde. So tune in, discern what that is, and consciously work with it and use it to inform the seeds you are planting for your new future at this new moon. Now, remember everybody, at this time, choose the light, choose the truth. You are so much stronger than you know. And I wish you all a very blessed new moon in Scorpio and powerful, powerful Scorpio time. Much love to you all. Many blessings.